personally the interest to offer group spaces and retreats anymore. I do them personally out of a desire to meet people. As many of you know who have been here, and those of you who know me a bit longer, I have no interest in teaching or trainings, things like that. I make quite a point out of not following, obviously, me. I'm a trans lineage type. I'm in a post-Buddhist phase. I'm in a post-mindfulness phase. Post-ism, you know, I've gone on, ranted about the end of the toxic masculine, including my own denied toxic masculine. I've talked about it. I do things on stage to satirize it. My activism is not so much to change society anymore. It's to live my own humble, simple life with my few friends, my aspiration to be in a new higher frequency of love with someone, my beautiful daughter, and touch the earth without shoes, put my hands back on Mother Nature, and to live more elegantly in my own spirit, if you will, during this late stage phase of capitalism and the inevitability, at least from my humble assessment, of the end of civilization as we know it, and the likelihood of uber chaos in life as we know it. So I'm here to meet family and to commit to this word we've used quite a bit, Dhamma or Dharma. I call it world Dharma, the ancient Sanskrit word that means many things but freedom, and you couple it with the world, and we have world freedom taken from the world music movement, where people come together in their own respective genres and they make music that's never been done before. I like to be with people making music that's never been done before. So keeping alive, if you will, the oxygen within consciousness that I most respect, creativity, high regard for ethical intelligence, say no more about spiritual intelligence, compassion. We've been inviting each other here during these 6 days now to embody the felt reality of beautifying consciousness. Another way to look at meditation. Keep your lists active throughout your lifetime of what are those states of inner beingness that you want to define as the reason for your being. Who are those qualities? What are those textures? How do we know and authenticate them as real-time experiences? The application of meditation isn't so much to still the mind or to develop, for me, personal peace. Happiness in a more existentially dimensional sense, yes, but not in a conventional sense. But how to actualize the promise of making our Dharma or Dhamma or meditation life, the life of the mindfully intelligent savant. How to oxygenate beauty, creativity, erotic poetry, acid jazz, anything that symbolizes the soul meeting the source and the psyche within context. That aesthetic is very interesting to me. So just kind of going over some points that we've been talking about. May I invite you to keep active today. Deep, not just embodiment. It's easy to get lost in the idea of embodiment and not really feel the energies of direct breathing of what is it there that we feel beyond embodiment. How often in meditative circles or monasteries, people that you respect that you call guides or teachers or kalyanamitas, They ask you to hold your hand out or your arm and just feel the nature of being in the nature of the body. Not separating it from consciousness, but just be in the free flow in present time presence of being. There's something so poetic about that, something so beautiful about that, and to take the religiosity out of it, to take the training out of it, to take the practice out of it, and bring in this very beautiful, creative aesthetic called your own uniqueness, your own tempo. If I look at the word enchantment, it means a lot to my heart. It's easy to be in despair today, but it's very challenging and beautiful to be in the experience of re-enchanting, heightening the enchantment of shared space. People ask, what could we do today to review things that we've done? May I invite us to bring the fruition of our lives in these 5 days together to share with each other this re-enchantment of the poetry of erotic, romantic, Ubuntification. I cannot be who I am without you. Beyond interrelatedness, oxygen doesn't know location. We are beings of existence. What will we do together in the dance of shared space? Okay, good morning. A couple of things that really strike me as interesting. I was on my way here, like what could I say today that would really, leave, my heart here? And I was trying to think of like an indelible principle that I'm trying to embody. I'm not sure that I can remember it very well, but I see so much difficulty in my life when I'm trying in some way to shape people into a desired image of my own desired evolution. Does that make sense to you? Trying to shape people into a desired image of my own desired evolution. Think of the complexities of that statement with principal intimates, with lovers, teachers, parents, children, and how to reclaim and own more of the complexity without making the need to shape someone else into the conformity to relax our struggle. That edge right there is being talked about in psychotherapy a lot. It's trying at the soul of the whole plant, so-called earth medicine narrative, trying to understand deeper trauma and wound, to see how we can take off of other, minimize otherness, to grow more fluently and fully in the complexity without you needing to change. That you needing to change narrative is really diabolical. I don't know that we'll ever find even probably the metaphor of a Christ, a goddess, or a Buddha where we couldn't find fault. I don't know what perfection looks like in immeasurable complexity. To me, I would say, I say it very respectfully to you, to examine what you hear me saying or what you know in relationship to what you hear me saying. I think it's a hoax. It's another kind of subtle illusion that for me primarily functions to disempower me and give me the credibility that I'm more ethically, spiritually intelligent than I am. And I listened to people here for these 5 days, and I don't know whether you've listened in the way that, try to look at the narrative that they're living with, the patterning. And a lot of issues go from self-investigation to other needing to change, and too bad you didn't because I feel the pain based on your unaccountability. So I would really invite you to look at words that keep you in hoax of otherness. Now, it brings up deep questions. I mean, look at how freely we use the word accountability, justice. Another pause here, if I can just go on in a free-forming way. A book that was very instrumental to me was by Reverend Desmond Tutu, who introduced me to the concept of Ubuntu. You cannot be who you are without other. When another person feels pain with the emotionality of Ubuntu, I feel and resonate with their pain. Compassion in inseparable unity. When someone else is in an elevated state of goodness, with Ubuntu, I feel that their goodness is felt in me as equally good and back to you. And when I'm in collusion with your denigration and I'm in the absence of a more full-hearted Ubuntu, I'm colluding with your denigration and supporting you and me being in mutual denigration. So in the absence of Ubuntu, it's been said, there's degrees of apartheid in heart and society. It's the absence of unity. Apartheid means apart. So to me, this concept of the hoax of I look at you with the desire of hoping in some way to change, to engage you in the image of my own desired evolution. Think of that, how much time we could spend in unpacking that in an intimate way. And it brings up all kinds of stuff, doesn't it? How close in is close in, where finally you can relax that so-called arbitrary Southern California edict, a psychobabble edict, and when is accountability really required? Okay? Like, can you really lie to me and me own it as your fault, and although I'm suffering like hell, but I'm going to spiritualize that pain and not hold you accountable. So it's a real delicate issue there that I'm getting to. My way of handling this in intimate relationships is it comes back to the issues of trust and safety, conscience, and integrity and reciprocity. So the evolution of commitment to me is that we both kind of stand in the same energetic of, I love you, I am with you, you are with me, you love me. We're committed to the fidelity of what? What are you committed to, and what do you use the word fidelity for? The fidelity of transparency, we use the word radical honesty. But accountability here, to me, means the willingness to share unpleasant truths and most poetic, romantic extensions of your heart. Be vulnerable at the higher frequency equal to the lower ones. I was at dinner last night and someone was saying about, I haven't seen in a while a romantic text. Well, I'll send you a few if you want. I'm not afraid of being romantic. I think that's something that we kind of wait until there's a sexual tension or a chemistry tension. And so I think part of this process is to overcome the need to shape into co-create. I would want to know that we're in reciprocal communion with the ideals and the principles of shared awakening. You see where I'm going with this? So until I hear from you, until you and I have some agreement with the shared reciprocity of intimate truths and shadows being open to in this co-creative awakening of mindful intelligence, I'm going to remove from you the need to conform to my hoped for desire of what evolution looks like in my own being. I'm going to tolerate your assholeness. I'm going to tolerate your polyamory because I'm agreeing not to participate in your need. But I'm not going to make you wrong for it. Right there. So pause halfway through the opening here. My teachers in Burma, very fond of me, telling me, of all people, because I was deeply rooted in activism for nearly 3.5 decades, which I'm quite proud of. But it's a very fine line to be an activist in the world without wanting them to change. Like, what's the point? What's the point? I mean, you're teaching a meditation class for people to conform to your idea of meditation. Or it's done freely to let you see how I meditate and you do what you want. Very different attitude of stopping to teach and sharing. But in activism, you really have a conscious way of being more skillful to get someone to see what they don't see, right? So when I speak about taking the shaping off of another person to conform to our own hoped-for evolution, I would really employ there at the edge of that opening skillfulness, compassion, empathy, patience, kindness, respect, dignity, reciprocity. 6 or 7 different beautiful states of mind that inform how to take back and to deliver a more skillful truth without the need to change. That's a very refined state of consciousness. How to share from our heart without the need for her to hear. I would work towards that. Meditation, to me, one of the foundations of it is the embodiment, the conscious embodiment of conscience, integrity, and self-responsibility. This is called the 100% rule, where I come from, where it was never appropriate in meditative training to think that the problem lied outside of your own mind. And it's a wonderful experimentation to try it. Those of you who are coming to the 10-day retreat in Burma, you will know that one of the instructions is it's never the barking dog. Call him named George or Jim or Shakti. He's never the problem. It's not his values. He's just a fucking dog. Sorry about that. She called me out for using the FUC keyword. I said, I cannot stop it. I've got Tourette syndrome. It gets worse from there. I'm so sorry to kind of cut you off like that. I actually stood over there and said, you know, I'm going to show her. I'm not going to use it once. And so I'm going to only use it once today. I'm going to be disciplined. So in other words, mindful intelligence is what we do. This is my definition of my vocation of the meaning of the word Dharma. I'm in the post-mindfulness phase, and I cannot use the word mindfulness without intelligence. So this whole retreat, my whole experience today, the whole soul of World Dharma is informed by mindful intelligence, brought to self, brought to context, 2 places of placement. And one of the guiding principles of this placement is, why would I want to take up the activism of changing you, when in fact I would like to be not just co-shaped, but let me be most reliable to walking my existential, psychological, mindfully intelligent talk. The Gandhian cliche, be the peace that you seek, be the mindful intelligence that you hoped for in another being. It's such a peaceful day to take off the shroud of need from other. I would only work towards that if you have interest, to reclaim that state of mind that molds and shapes and is magnetized to the inability of others. I would call that another way of looking at collusion with shadow. Classically speaking, back in the 1920s, they called it codependency. But it's more refined than that. It's so nuanced, isn't it? Just examine your lives and look at the principal intimates that we wrote down on day 1. In the top 3, what would you like different? There you go. You can expose what you want about them, and what do you go about doing to feel bad that they don't change. Then it'll reveal to you that collusion. So if you're looking for happiness, my teachers would look at me and say, Alan, just take the war off other. Take the agenda off other. Take it off God. Take it off the Buddha. Take it off the president. Take it off the dictatorship. Take it off Taurus in the sky of scapegoating reality and deferring to a fiction rather than just simply being more mindfully intelligent of your own mind. Take it off of other. That's a very, very challenging. He said, here's the phrase that I'd like you to memorize. Be victorious over self, not over other. And when you look at the metaphor of toxic masculinity, it's informed by domination, hierarchy, denigration, shame, and the narrative is, we know, you don't. And the fictions of fascism, dictatorship, and totalitarianism are the absence of the feminine-inspired dialogue. When you look at the blunt face of dictatorship, it isn't interested in what you think. So the real extreme of this issue, of not just the hoped-for shaping of you into my hoped-for evolution, that's a super rare individual. You want to marry her. But by and large, most of the world is forcing us into degrees of servitude in the name of their absolute, violent dedication to control. You with me on that? Are we okay? This interesting to you? I'll give you a very extreme example. The concept of the 100% rule is implicit in very refined existential Buddhist literature. That's where you find it. And it's not a black and white, I do all the work and you don't. But it's found in the word bodhisattva. That's the Pali word, and the Sanskrit word is bodhisattva. People hear that very much like the word UFO and they think of alien. They hear the word bodhisattva and they think of Buddha. But its meaning is the radical willingness to reclaim the qualities of mind that source, if unrecognized, self-suffering. Source self-suffering. The whole teaching was how to stop creating one's own self-suffering. And so the concept of bodhisattva was an individual dedicated to, I refuse to participate anymore in justified self-suffering, righteous self-suffering. You wronged me. You agreed to. Oh, look at the language. There's probably $75 million being spent at this hour on psychotherapy. Maybe $1 billion because of what someone didn't do that was either agreed upon or never talked about. Are you with me? So the world runs on this configuration. The concept of bodhisattva is an individual who is dedicated, reliably, coherently involved in feeling but not blaming. And when blaming arrives, they have the mindful intelligence to know that texture so sufficiently that they're willing to even apologize for it. In monastic circles, the refinement of blame is so subtle, and you'll see nuns and monks and lay people in monasteries apologize for having a thought of negativity about someone. They really take it seriously. And then they'll bow to them and thank them for revealing in support of their own transformation a shortcoming. So they humbleize the process and dedicate more to the 100% rule. So the word bodhisattva means that wherever I encounter complexity, there I can grow. Keep it simple. Now this little story of the Buddha, apparently, in the traditional texts, whether you attribute them to the Buddha or not, I'm not sure. He was born, so to speak, as a king, and he lost his ability to see. Excuse me. He was born as a king, and he had a tremendous capacity to see, just the opposite. And he was such a benevolent ruler that his chief attendants had to keep him from deviating from being a really competent king. He was very generous, very altruistic, and dispensed with lots of things that were better kept in the kingdom than with the peasantry, apparently. And then there was one day a mendicant, an old mendicant, who walked by the outside of his window, according to this story, fable, allegory, I don't know. And he asked his attendant, "Who is this man?" And his attendant said, "He's a mendicant. And how is it that he walks so slow?" And the attendant was very reluctant to tell the real reason. He said, "Because he's quite old. But he walks so slow, I've never seen anyone walk that slow." He said, "Sir, he's blind." And he thought to himself, in a moment of conscience, that he wanted to give something that he could give. He was dedicated not just to shaping someone into what they weren't. He was into shaping those places of himself that weren't. Are you with me? So it's one thing to reclaim the need to shape someone into the hoped-for evolution of themselves. The positive opposite of that is to see that as an invitation to shape oneself into the evolution of that hoped-for desire. Are you with me on that? It's quite clear, but it's a very important point. So, the king, the Buddha to be, said to his attendant, "I'd like to give this old mendicant my eyes." And it said in the text that the king was dedicated to the development of the paramis, those 10 qualities of consciousness. The first of it being dana, generosity of spirit. And here the cellular instinct, you know how it just wells up in your heart? Why? It's the parami voice. And attuning to the wisdom of mindful intelligence as a cellular, translocal, infinite voice of awakening. That's what I said yesterday about there are thoughts and then there's the intelligence that thoughts come through. It's a very different place to place your mindfulness than just thought. Many people want to be mindful of their thought. Of course, it's necessary. Mindful of your images and so on. But to be mindful and inhabit the core primordial flow of intelligences is a very interesting form of mindfulness. So his attendant said to the Buddha, to be, "Sir, you are the king, he is a mendicant. Your eyes are more valuable in your own being than in the mendicant who's quite adjusted to not seeing." Okay, the point here is the psychology of justification. Now examine in your own pursuits where you justify and reason to contribute to the need for another to change. Know those psychologies, don't wait for the problem, and take your money off the therapist's wallet. Mindful intelligence is the Dharma psychotherapeutic existential savant. So the Buddha to be said to his attendant, "I prefer to give him my eyes." And his attendant said, "Sir, how about you giving him just one? You keep one, he gets one." Very subtle. Here he's talking him out of being epically generous. Look at my own mind sometimes when I'm walking and talking and writing and living, how I bargain down from my giving. Really cool. Really want to marry these types. You know, you owe me. To find virtue in beauty because it's virtuous, because you love it. Watch for reciprocity. It's very freeing to give up reciprocity at that level unless there's deep, deep commitment and communion to the reciprocity on a weekly basis. But by and large, you want to be with principal intimates and friends in my tribe who live freely from dana. They surprise you with whatever the surprise is that you want to give, a romantic text, unsuspecting, from nowhere. Wow, what a beautiful thing to do. If we could only begin to understand, oh, what a beautiful thing to do is the precursor to a beautiful state of mind. Yeah? So, they gave both eyes, he demanded that both eyes be given to the mendicant. Now this particular story is told in a set of books in the traditional 11,000 pages of text called the Jataka Tales. They're very fascinating. If you're in the 3 volumes, Jataka, J-A-T-A-K-A. And there are stories and fables of virtue, of the paramis. And the Buddha now in ancient India is telling a few of his tribe members, all of whom was the mendicant was a friend, the attendant was a deep friend, tribal migration. So we're investing in a Dharma family together. I don't know who you are to me, but I care enough about you to relate to you as a Dharma sister right now. Yeah? Can we do that? Can we drop our ism? Can we drop our tantra? Can we drop our location? Can we drop our gender? Can we drop our right and wrongness and go to that place that Rumi talked about that's out in the middle called the Dharma? That's what we're doing here. We're family. And so he told this group of friends around this fire at night, please, my friends, look in the sky. What do you see? And they all said, infinite amounts of stars. He said, more times have I given my eyes than all those stars in the heavens in order to develop generosity. It could be true, or it could be just an invitation of imagination. To free yourself was the message that I got. Free yourself from centrality, from the gravity of greed, the appropriateness of giving. Yes, 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 but talk yourself out of that. No, 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 no. Do what we do because the flower is fragrant, not that space is inviting it to be fragrant. Don't wait for space to talk to you. And take fragrance off of the need to make space fragrant. Do what we do because it's unconditional love, unconditional compassion, unconditional patience, the 100% rule. Okay? That was one point I wanted to share with you. And just pause for a minute. Today, just a little bit of an overview of today, we're going to do a few meditations. We're going to do one on reclamation of projection, and within that, recommitment to the fidelity of the paramis. We're going to do one on forgiveness. I think forgiveness is a very powerful force to do together. There'll be ample time for personal issues and comments, reviews, anything in your notebooks that you've done, that you've written, that you want to talk about. Feel free to bring that up. There are points that I would like to share, both from review and new points. But I don't want to just do me and think it's important to you. So I want to take a minute here while I have a sip of coffee, and you have your own coffee, a couple of minutes. Look in your own heart. You've touched some beautiful places here. I mean, some of the vulnerabilities and opennesses, the commitments of you to be here every day, it's not easy. I mean, you could easily say, wow, I'm full and exhausted at the same time. Yes, it's a retreat. It's meant to be an immersion. That's purposely. I don't know when it's going to happen again. I'm going to talk to Ian and Terry if I can do another one at the end of April. You know, I was told by Samantha, I've been invited to the Bali Spirit Fest now. I'm no longer taboo. spiritually incorrect is going mainstream. And so that's important for me to keep alive my familyness with you, if you want to keep coming around, by way of saying, where are you today in your heart? What is it that you want to touch or further in your curiosity to explore together? I mean, it's so rare to come together like this. So use the sacred container to evolve that which brought you to this space, so that when we leave together, we will feel that we really nurtured that deeper Dharma appetite as much as possible, which is different than the resolution of issues. But at least there's the dignity of having given it our best. So take a couple of minutes. What isn't yet brought forth in the way that I really would like to take that next step? And just to make a note, and if there are things that come up, we're going to go into a period of discussion about it. Okay? So take 5 or 10 minutes and just chill. Of course, stay silent. Hang anywhere here that you are. What's important to bring forth, at least for you to feel it? And if you want to talk about it, I'm down with it. Okay, thank you.